You're listening to The Reading Circle, where timeless works come alive. Our book in focus today, The Prince, by Niccolò Machiavelli. For more than 5 centuries, this work has been whispered in royal courts, studied in great classrooms, and feared by rulers. The Prince is more than a book. It is a timeless mirror into power, strategy, and the human will. So, sit back as we step into the world of Niccolò Machiavelli. And if you enjoy this audiobook, don't forget to hit subscribe and like. It helps us bring you more classics that continue to shape the world.
Okay, so imagine a book. Not just any book, but one that's been, well, whispered about in courts, argued over in classrooms, maybe even feared by rulers for, 500 years now?
Yeah, easily 5 centuries. It's quite something.
It really is. And it doesn't just talk about power, it kind of dissects it, gets right down to the raw, sometimes uncomfortable truths about how you get influence, how you use it, and maybe most importantly, how you keep it.
Exactly. It's unflinching.
So today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli. And our mission really is to pull out the key insights, the core lessons from this pretty controversial work. Give you a shortcut to understanding why it still matters, why it's still, unsettling sometimes.
A very necessary shortcut, I think. It's dense stuff.
Definitely. So let's just quickly set the scene. Think Florence, Italy. The year is 1513.
Right.
Italy back then, not the country we know. It's fractured, a collection of city-states, basically. A constant battlefield, really. Foreign invasions, alliances shifting like sand, betrayals, just endless turmoil.
A real pressure cooker.
Totally. And Florence, which had been this proud republic, it had just been taken over pretty brutally by the Medici family, big power players. So everything's upended.
And right in the middle of this chaos, you have Niccolò Machiavelli.
The man himself.
Yeah. And he wasn't some academic sitting in a library. He was a diplomat, deeply involved. He'd, rubbed shoulders with kings, popes, generals. He'd seen how the sausage gets made, so to speak.
He knew the game.
He absolutely knew the game. But then, boom, the Medici come back to power. Machiavelli. He gets accused of conspiracy.
Oh, wow.
He's tortured, thrown out of office, and basically exiled to his little farm in the countryside. His whole world just collapsed.
So he goes from the heart of power to nothing.
Pretty much. And it's fascinating because it was there, stripped of everything, in that quiet, frankly humiliating exile, that he starts writing Il Principe, The Prince.
So this wasn't some abstract theory he cooked up.
Not at all. It came from rock bottom, from seeing it all, losing it all, and I think trying desperately to make sense of it, maybe teach something to those still in power about how to actually survive.
And what came out of that exile was, radical for the time, wasn't it?
Completely radical. This wasn't like Plato dreaming up perfect cities or medieval writers talking about the ideal moral king.
Right, it wasn't aspirational.
No. Machiavelli basically said, look, forget how things should be. Let's talk about how they actually are. He strips politics down to its raw essence, power. How to get it, how to use it, how to keep it. No sugarcoating. He
was focused on the is, not the ought. Practical survival in a world that was, frankly, pretty cutthroat.
Exactly. And when it was finally published, 1532?
Yeah.
5 years after he died?
Yeah, posthumously.
It just exploded. Instant controversy. Some people saw it as like a handbook for tyrants. Just cynical justification for being cruel and manipulative.
The devil's handbook, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. But others saw it completely differently. They thought, wow, finally, someone's being honest about how politics really works, without all the usual polite fiction.
So it immediately polarized people.
Hugely. And that love-hate thing, it's stuck with the book ever since. It defines its legacy, really.
Okay, so it was controversial then, focused on the harsh realities. But why are we still dissecting it today? A book from 1513, what makes it feel so relevant, almost 500 plus years later?
Well, I think it boils down to something pretty fundamental. Human nature.
Hasn't changed much.
Not at its core, no. The dilemmas leaders faced back then, they're remarkably similar to the ones leaders face today. Think about it. How do you inspire loyalty? How do you deal with rivals, whether that's, other countries or competitors in your market?
Or even rivals within your own organization.
Absolutely. And how do you balance what's morally right with what's strategically necessary, especially when things get tough? And maybe crucially, how do you adapt, fast when luck, or fortune, as he called it, turns against you?
These are timeless questions.
They really are. Universal struggles of power, ambition, survival. You see Machiavelli's fingerprints, maybe unconsciously, all over the modern world.
How so? Give us some examples.
Well, politics is the obvious one, right? Modern campaigns, strategic messaging, the whole focus on appearance often mattering more than the underlying truth. That's pure Machiavelli.
Managing perception.
Exactly. Or think about business. A CEO taking over a struggling company or navigating a huge crisis or trying to outmaneuver competitors. They face Machiavellian choices constantly.
Like needing to be decisive, maybe even ruthless sometimes to save the ship.
Precisely. And honestly, even in our own lives. Like his thoughts on when to be kind, when to be firm, when to speak up, when maybe silence is the better protector.
Yeah.
There are echoes there too.
It's surprisingly personal.
It can be. He wasn't just writing for Renaissance princes. He was writing for anyone in any era who has to grapple with power, ambition, and just getting through.
That's powerful. And it makes these core lessons, these sort of raw insights, feel incredibly immediate. So let's dig into some of those key takeaways. What are the big ones?
Okay, well, one of the first things he tackles is the difference between hereditary and new power.
Okay. Old money versus new money. Kinda.
Sort of. But in terms of states, he says ruling an old established state, one you inherit, much easier.
Why's that?
Because there are existing traditions, loyalties. People are used to the way things are. There's a foundation. But acquiring new power, taking over a new territory, or, like a CEO taking over a new company.
That's unstable.
Exactly. It's fragile. People resist change naturally. Rivals start circling, looking for weakness. Every little mistake gets magnified.
But the lesson for today might be, if you inherit something stable, focus on preserving it. Careful stewardship.
Right. Don't rock the boat unnecessarily.
But if you're the new person, the one taking over something shaky or starting something new,
then Machiavelli says you have to act swiftly, decisively. You need to establish your authority, prove you belong right away, or you risk getting pushed out.
you have to earn it through action, basically.
You do. And that need for swift authority leads right into probably his most famous and definitely most misinterpreted lesson. It is better to be feared than loved.
Ah, yes, the classic. Sounds pretty grim.
It does on the surface. Now, he's clear. Ideally, you want both. Who wouldn't? But if you have to choose, fear is safer.
Safer? Why?
Because love, he argues, is fickle. It depends on other people's goodwill. It can vanish the moment things get tough or you ask for a sacrifice. Fear, though. Fear is something a leader can control to a degree, provided, and this is crucial, provided it doesn't turn into hatred.
Okay, that's a big caveat. So it's not about being a monster.
No, not at all. That's the nuance people miss. He wasn't saying be cruel for fun. He was arguing that authority needs to be maintained. Through respect, yes, but also through discipline, through a clear understanding that there are consequences for stepping out of line.
So it's calculated, strategic.
Exactly. A ruler who's hated is vulnerable. Everyone wants them gone. The fear he's talking about is more like respect for the leader's power and willingness to act decisively. It's about clear boundaries, firm expectations, not random terror. Think of a manager who enforces strict accountability, maybe not universally loved, but gets results, versus the too nice leader everyone likes but kind of ignores.
That makes sense. It's about effectiveness, not necessarily popularity. And this focus on how you're perceived, whether through fear or something else, ties into another big one, right? The idea that appearances matter more than reality.
Oh, absolutely. This is huge for Machiavelli. He basically says a ruler must appear virtuous, seem compassionate, honest, religious, all the good stuff, even if behind closed doors you have to make tough, maybe even ruthless decisions.
So put on a good show.
Essentially, yes. Because the world, he says, judges by appearances, by what they see, not by the hidden truth. People often want to believe the positive image, especially if it suggests stability.
It's about managing perception again.
It's almost all about managing perception. It's not just hypocrisy in his view. It's a strategic tool, engineering consent, or at least acceptance, through how you present yourself.
And you see that today constantly, don't you? Leaders talking unity while playing hardball politics, or companies with glossy ethical reports while maybe cutting corners somewhere else.
All the time. The lesson is stark. Perception is power. Sometimes it's even more powerful than the actual facts on the ground.
Wow, the original fake it till you make it, maybe.
Yeah.
But he was also really strong on self-reliance, wasn't he? This idea, do not depend on others' strength.
Absolutely resolute on that.
Yeah.
Relying on mercenaries, hired soldiers, or counting too much on allies. Recipe for disaster, according to him.
Why? Because they aren't loyal.
Exactly. Mercenaries fight for pay, not for you or your cause. They'll desert you if they get a better offer or if things look dangerous. Allies have their own agendas. They'll help when it suits them and abandon you when fortune shifts.
That feels a bit counterintuitive today, though. We talk so much about collaboration, partnerships.
Yeah, and it's not that he'd reject all collaboration. It's about fundamental dependence. Don't put your core security, your survival, in someone else's hands.
So build your own capabilities.
Build your own loyal force, whether that's actual soldiers in his time or your core team, your internal expertise today. Real security, sustainable power comes from within. Relying too heavily on outside consultants, borrowed tech, shifting alliances, it makes you vulnerable. You can partner up, sure, but you have to own your strength, own your destiny.
Okay, so internal strength is key. Which brings us to another fascinating pair of concepts he talks about, fortune and virtue.
Right. This is central to his thinking. He distinguishes between fortune, which is basically luck, chance, the unpredictable stuff that happens to us.
Like the market crashing or a natural disaster.
Exactly. Things beyond our control. He figured maybe half of what happens is down to fortune, but the other half, that belongs to virtue.
And virtue isn't virtue like being morally good, right? It's something else.
Correct. It's different. It's more like skill, courage, decisiveness, energy, adaptability, the ability to act boldly and effectively to shape events rather than just be swept away by them.
So fortune is like a wild river that can flood and cause chaos.
Yeah, that's his analogy.
But virtue is the skill and foresight to build dams and channels, to manage the floodwaters, maybe even harness their power.
That's a perfect way to put it. You have to accept that luck plays a role. You can't control everything. But success ultimately belongs to those who have the virtue to recognize opportunities when fortune presents them, and the guts to adapt and act decisively when luck turns bad. It's about agency, being proactive.
Taking control of what you can control.
Precisely. And that proactive stance often requires difficult choices, which leads to another tough lesson. Eliminate threats decisively.
Sounds pretty ruthless.
It is. Machiavelli looked at history, particularly Rome, and concluded, you have to deal with potential threats quickly and completely before they grow too strong to handle.
Like Rome destroying the ruling families of places they conquered. To prevent future uprisings.
Exactly that kind of example. He argued that hesitation is dangerous. Letting a rival fester, letting a problem grow, it just invites bigger trouble later.
So decisive action, even if it seems harsh in the moment, might actually be more merciful in the long run because it prevents greater conflict or instability later.
That was his argument. It's about strategic ruthlessness, not pointless cruelty. He saw delaying necessary action as a weakness, almost an invitation to chaos. It's a very calculated, almost surgical approach. Remove the tumor before it spreads.
Not an emotional response, then.
No, very unemotional, which connects to his ideas about when cruelty can be used wisely.
Okay, wisely is doing a lot of work there.
It is. Again, he's not celebrating cruelty. He just sees it as a tool, one that sometimes, unfortunately, might be necessary for a leader to maintain order or secure the state.
But with very strict conditions, right?
Extremely strict. If you must use cruelty, it should be swift, decisive, and, crucially, over quickly. Done once for a specific purpose, and then stopped.
Like that example he uses of Caesar Borgia, executing his own brutal minister.
Right. One harsh act to restore order and signal that brutality wouldn't be tolerated, followed immediately by establishing fairness and good governance. The goal was to shock people into obedience, then reassure them.
So the opposite of, say, constant nagging punishments or a reign of terror?
Exactly. Endless cruelty just breeds hatred and resentment, which makes the ruler less secure. So if harsh measures are needed, they should be rare, targeted, achieve their goal, and then be followed by stability and predictability. Not gratuitous suffering.
Purposeful, not sadistic.
Yes. And all these actions, how you handle power, threats, cruelty, appearances, they all feed into the importance of reputation.
How people see you.
How people see you based on your actions. Machiavelli stressed that a prince must actively cultivate their reputation. People judge what they see.
And what kind of reputation did he think was best?
One for strength, certainly. Reliability. Justice, even if it's a tough justice sometimes. A leader with a strong, consistent reputation can maintain order, command respect, even through tough times.
Whereas a weak reputation
Invites contempt, challenges, even rebellion. If people think you're weak, indecisive, or easily manipulated, they'll test you. It's about consistency, really. Your actions build a track record.
and trust, or at least predictability once it's broken.
Almost impossible to get back. Your reputation walks into the room before you do.
Which brings us to maybe the deepest tension in the whole book, morality versus necessity.
Ah, yes. This is where he really broke from earlier thinkers. They often focused on the leader needing to be a moral exemplar.
Be good, basically.
Right. But Machiavelli looked around and said, hold on. The world is full of people who are not good. A ruler who insists on being perfectly moral all the time. They'll be destroyed by those who are willing to play dirty.
So survival comes first.
For the state, yes. Survival and stability were paramount for him. This means sometimes a leader has to do things that are, well, not morally ideal in order to protect the state or achieve a necessary goal.
That's a tough one. Like in business, maybe closing down an unprofitable division, it feels harsh, people lose jobs, but maybe it's necessary for the whole company to survive.
Exactly that kind of dilemma. Or in politics, making compromises that dilute your ideals but keep the government functioning or avoid a worse outcome.
So he wasn't saying abandon morality altogether.
No, I don't think so. It's more a tragic recognition that sometimes the demands of leadership force you into choosing the lesser of two evils. Good intentions are not enough if you don't have the power to enact them, or if you let the state collapse by being too idealistic. Morality without power, in the rough and tumble world he saw, is ultimately powerless.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for us living centuries after Machiavelli dealing with our own complex world?
Well, I think the first thing is not to fall into the trap of just dismissing the prince as, a manual for dictators.
It's more nuanced than that.
Much more. It's often misread that way, but really it's a book for realists. He wasn't trying to teach leaders how to be evil. He was trying to teach them how to survive, how to be effective in a world that often rewards ruthlessness over niceness.
The advice is harsh, undeniably.
It is harsh, but it's also brutally honest about the nature of power, how it works, the tough choices it demands. And honestly, 500 years later, those fundamental dilemmas haven't really changed. Leaders today still wrestle with when to be kind, when to be tough, when to stick to ideals, when necessity forces compromise, when to trust luck, and when you have to make your own.
So as we finish this deep dive, it feels like Machiavelli's voice is still whispering these really potent, maybe uncomfortable truths across time.
Definitely.
Things like, appear virtuous, but be ready for decisive, maybe even unpleasant action. Use fear strategically, but never let it become hatred. That's critical.
Crucial difference.
Build your strength at home. Don't become dependent on others.
Own your power.
Seize fortune with boldness, with that virtue. Don't just wait for things to happen.
Be proactive.
And maybe the hardest one. Sometimes survival and stability have to come before trying to achieve moral perfection in every single action.
That's the crux of it, the tragic element perhaps. The Prince is definitely not a comfortable read. It doesn't offer easy answers. But it holds up a mirror, a very clear, sometimes unflattering mirror. It shows leaders, and maybe all of us to some degree, not just who they might aspire to be, but who they sometimes must become to navigate the world and endure.
So the final thought for you listening is maybe, what does that mirror reflect in your world? In the leadership you see, or maybe even the choices you face yourself?
It's a question that stays with you long after you put the book down.